Hey, welcome back to Stay Ahead. If you've ever opened RSA Archer for the first time and felt like you were staring into a control room with 1,000 unlabeled switches, this video is for you. Today we're building a complete governance, risk, and compliance program from a blank server all the way to a fully wired system with live dashboards, one coordinated system instead of 3 disconnected spreadsheets. We're going to move through all 7 core Archer modules in the order you'd actually deploy them in a real company. Every time we hit an acronym, I'll stop and explain exactly what it means in plain English. Every Archer build starts the same way. Archer deploys on a Windows server with a SQL database as its backend for storing records, plus IIS Internet Information Services, Microsoft's web server software to actually serve the web interface. Next, user and role management, integrate with Active Directory, AD, for SSO single sign-on, so people log in with their existing company credentials. Then define roles like risk analyst, auditor, and compliance officer, the principle of least privilege. Then the data model. In Archer, an application is their term for a data table with its own form and workflow. You'll build your first 2, a risk register and a policy library, the skeleton everything else hangs off of. Finally, connectors, turn on the data feed manager, Archer's built-in integration engine, a universal translator letting tools like Qualys, ServiceNow, and Splunk push data into Archer on a schedule. Worked example, a mid-size bank stands up Archer on a Windows server with SQL, connects it to their existing Active Directory so their 40-person risk team logs in with normal credentials, and on day 1 creates exactly 2 applications, risk register and policy library. The heart of Archer. We create the risk register application with fields for risk ID, title, category, likelihood, impact, owner, and mitigation plan categorized into credit, market, operational, and cyber. The scoring methodology, risk score equals likelihood times impact, each rated 1 to 5, max 25. Thresholds, 1 to 5 low, 6 to 10 medium, 11 to 15 high, 16 to 25 critical. Once scored, link it to a mitigation plan and controls, then build a dashboard showing key risk indicators and residual risk, what's left after mitigation. A heat map plots likelihood against impact at a glance. Automation, anything scoring 15 plus auto notifies the risk owner, 20 plus escalates straight to the risk committee. Worked example, a bank logs credit default risk, likelihood 4 times impact 5 equals 20, landing in critical, auto-routed to the risk committee. This is where Archer stops being a spreadsheet and starts talking to your security stack. We create an IT risk register with fields for asset name, vulnerability ID, CVSS score, 0 to 10 severity scale, risk owner, remediation task, and status. We connect the data feed manager to a vulnerability scanners API, Qualys, Rapid7, or Tenable, continuously scanning the network, and map their fields into Archer automatically. Automation is the payoff. CVSS 7 Plus auto assigns a ServiceNow remediation task, CVSS 9 Plus escalates directly to the security manager. We also integrate a SIEM, Splunk or QRadar, so active incidents flow in and map to affected assets. 3 dashboards, vulnerability trend, open vs closed over time, top risk assets, and SLA compliance, SLA being the agreed time frame to get something done, like patching within 30 days. Full loop, a scan finds CVE 2026-1234 with CVSS 9.8. Archer auto imports it via Qualys, opens a ServiceNow ticket, escalates to the security manager. Once patched and the ticket resolves, Archer auto updates status to closed hands-off, end-to-end. Compliance is where we think we're following the rules becomes we can prove it. We create a compliance management application, then import a framework GDPR where each article becomes its own record. We build a control library. A control is a safeguard that reduces a risk or satisfies a requirement, like encrypt all data at rest. Each control links to its regulatory requirement, internal policy, and related risk. Other frameworks live side by side: HIPAA, healthcare data, SOX, financial reporting, NIST, cybersecurity, and ISO 27001, information security. Evidence workflow: control rightward arrow evidence submission, rightward arrow review, rightward arrow approval, with automated quarterly reminders. Example: GDPR Article 32 implement encryption and access controls, owned by IT security, evidence attached, status compliant, linked to data breach risk. One click from law to control to proof to risk. Audit management is the formal, point-in-time check that confirms the rules are actually being followed. We create an audit engagements application. Planning prioritizes audits using risk scores already in the risk register. During execution, auditors build workpapers, documented records of procedures performed and findings, attaching evidence as they go. Findings are rated low, medium, high, or critical, each linked to a risk, a control, and sometimes an asset. Remediation tasks flow into Archer, ServiceNow, or Jira through finding rightward arrow action plan, rightward arrow closure. Example: Q3 IT access control audit finds excessive admin accounts without MFA multi-factor authentication. Rated high, linked to unauthorized access risk and the MFA control. A ServiceNow ticket enforces MFA. Once implemented, the finding closes. Every vendor with access to your data or systems is effectively an extension of your own risk surface. We create a vendor management application and assign each vendor an initial risk tier based on their access or exposure. Then we send a questionnaire through the vendor portal, an external-facing part of Archer covering security posture, financial health, and compliance readiness. Weighted formula: security posture 40%, financial health 30%, compliance readiness 30%. One clean ranking number. A score of 75 plus escalates to the vendor risk committee. Critical tier vendors get reassessed quarterly. Example: Cloud Host Incorporated security 80, financial 70, compliance 90, rightward arrow weighted overall score of 80, high risk. Auto escalates to the vendor risk committee and links to data breach risk and service availability risk, feeding straight back into the enterprise risk register. This is what happens when something actually goes wrong. It starts with a BIA business impact analysis, identifying which processes matter most and how much downtime each can tolerate. We map dependencies on people, systems, and vendors, tying back into vendor management, then build the continuity plan inside Archer linked to real IT assets and real vendors, not a generic binder document. Two key terms: RTO recovery time objective, how fast a process must be restored, and RPO recovery point objective, how much data loss is tolerable. We run crisis simulation drills feeding a continuity plan readiness dashboard. Example, the BIA reveals payments processing can tolerate at most 2 hours of downtime. The plan links this to the hosting vendor and a backup data center. A quarterly simulated outage tests whether the team can fail over within that window. None of the automation across all 7 modules works without connectors underneath it. Think of the data feed manager as Archer's universal translator. SIEM tools pull incidents in, ticketing tools push tasks out and sync status, scanners feed IT risk, and regulatory feeds update compliance. Mechanically, an API application programming interface connects Archer to the outside tool, fields get mapped between systems, the feed runs on a schedule usually daily and failures are logged with automatic retries. Every module feeds a dashboard. That's the payoff of the setup work. Executives don't want to click into 400 records, they want one heat map and one number. Across today's build we created 5, risk heat map, compliance status, audit findings trend, vendor risk scores, and continuity plan readiness. The full RSA Archer stack, start to finish, platform setup, enterprise risk, IT and security risk, regulatory compliance, audit management, third-party risk, and business continuity 7 modules, wired together with real connectors and real dashboards. If this helped you make sense of Archer, hit subscribe. More Stay Ahead deep dives are coming, including a hands-on risk register lab, Archer workflow rules, and dashboards that actually get read by executives. Huge thanks to today's sponsor, Audit.site, for making this series possible.